This is the most awful, incredibly horrible thing anyone could ever go through. I don't know where my baby is.
And that breaking news, new child porn charges against Kelly Dwyer's friend.
Tenure of this entire thing has been so painful, so long, and impacted so many people.
Breaking news now at noon. Nearly 4 years after Kelly Dwyer went missing, her body was discovered in 2015. Charges now filed in her murder.
Do you not think Kelly's alive?
I don't think she's alive. I don't think she's alive.
"27-year-old Kelly DWI had been living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the past 5 years. She was always super busy and really outgoing, juggling 3 different jobs while still making time to hang out with friends, soaking in the nightlife, and enjoying the vibe of local bars and restaurants. Her dad, Tony, said she seemed genuinely settled there and truly happy with her life. And even with her crazy schedule, she always tried to stay in touch with him and talk whenever she could.
I love you so much, and I'm so thankful for you and all of those things, and I don't want you to be sad because we're not talking. You can always pick up and call me. I'll call you right back if I don't pick up. But yeah, I love you. I hope to hear from you in the morning.
Kelly's aunt said she always believed the best in people. Her optimism was honestly contagious, and that's a big reason why she had so many friends. At 27, she absolutely loved to travel and had always been really athletic. When she was younger, she showed a lot of promise in tennis, but later on, she switched things up, trading tennis for yoga. She ended up working as an educational consultant at the Lululemon athletic clothing store. On top of that, she taught yoga at a local studio and also babysat a few days a week to earn some extra money. Like a lot of people, Kelly was super active on social media and dating apps. She kept things pretty casual and was enjoying the single life. But for about a year, she had been regularly seeing a 38-year-old man named Chris Sacko. Kelly told her dad, Tony, that she was completely into him, like totally impressed by this successful IT executive who had once even worked in tech for the Yankees. But for some reason, he left that job and moved to Milwaukee, looking for something new. Chris, just like Kelly, was always on the go. He worked a lot, loved sports and traveling, and also enjoyed Milwaukee's nightlife. It's a city sitting along the cold shores of Lake Michigan, calm and ordinary during the day, but at night it slips into a quiet where, behind normal-looking streets, stories are hiding that people will talk about for years. And by the way, before we keep going, drop a comment and tell me, what's the weather like where you are right now and what city are you watching from? It really helps the channel grow and honestly motivates me to make even more content for you guys. Sorry about that little pause. Let's keep going. And on October 10th, 2013, Chris and Kelly headed out for a night of bar hopping, meeting up with friends here and there as the evening went on. Just 2 days later, Kelly strangely hadn't posted anything on any of her social media accounts. Normally, she shared something every single day, and honestly, sometimes even a few times a day, so the total silence felt really off. When people tried calling her phone, there was nothing but quiet. It went straight to voicemail every time. That same day, Karen, Kelly's manager at Lululemon, was waiting for her to show up for her shift, but she never did. Karen ended up getting Chris's number and calling him, but he didn't answer either, so she left him a message. Not long after that, he called back and left a voicemail.
Karen, my name is Chris Sacko, returning a message.
He said he hadn't heard from Kelly for a few days either, which was strange. But he figured maybe she was upset with him about something like maybe they'd had an argument that night. Her friends started getting worried too. But aside from the total silence on social media, there were no bank card transactions and no phone activity at all. That's when an official investigation was launched. Kelly DWI was now considered a missing person. Chris told police that Kelly had met him at his apartment on the 18th floor of Lafayette Tower. A little before 8 o'clock that evening, they left together to try and get some cocaine, but ended up coming back empty-handed. After that, they went out for drinks at a bar called Allium, which was just a few minutes' walk from his place. Over the next several hours, they ran into different friends. Some people joined them, others left, drinks were flowing, and everyone was having a great time. Kelly even talked to one of her friends and mentioned that the next day, October 11th, was her day off. She said she wanted to work out and do some laundry, but mostly she was just planning to relax. A little after 2:30 in the morning, Chris and Kelly left the bar and went back to Chris's apartment. Security cameras caught them walking into the building, laughing and talking animatedly. It looked like they were having a pretty emotional conversation. Chris said they used drugs and had sex, and then fell asleep in the living room. According to him, Kelly left his apartment around 9 o'clock in the morning. He said he knew because he heard the door close and checked the time. After that, he never heard from her again. Chris didn't contact her for the rest of the day, but he claimed he was busy moving sports equipment to his mother's house. Karen, Kelly's manager, told police that in the month leading up to her disappearance, Kelly had been acting differently. She had lost a lot of weight, and her usually perfect work performance had started to slip. One time, Karen even sent her home because Kelly looked glassy-eyed and kind of out of it. Kelly explained it by saying she had taken allergy medicine on an empty stomach. But both police and her friends felt that wasn't nearly enough to explain why she would suddenly vanish. Her parents, friends, and coworkers went out every single day, posting missing person flyers everywhere they could. Karen kept in touch with Chris, trying to get answers, and said that over the phone he seemed helpful and open. But when she met him in person at the store a few days later, her feelings changed completely. Some of Kelly's coworkers had gathered to hand out flyers, and Karen said she felt a strong physical reaction being near Chris, like something was just off. Chris reached out and put his hand on her shoulder and said, "I'm sorry you're going through this." Of course, those were nice words to say, but this was the man Kelly had been seeing for an entire year, one of the closest people in her life. Karen expected to hear something like that from him, but Chris didn't seem all that shaken. He didn't look like someone who needed comfort or sympathy from others. Pretty soon, Chris's apartment became the center of attention. Kelly's dad, Tony, said Kelly was basically obsessed with Chris, but he had never fully trusted him. From what he knew, they had been seeing each other for about a year, but Chris was always hard to reach. He seemed distant, kind of evasive, like he was hiding parts of his life. And later on, it came out that Chris had secretly been in a 3.5-year relationship with a woman named Megan. Megan believed they weren't just exclusive. She thought they were heading toward marriage. Police also spoke with Chris's mother, Joyce. She confirmed that he had brought some things to her house that day, but said she had never even heard of Kelly. Chris had never mentioned her. Now, Chris was clearly on investigators' radar. By all accounts, he was the last person to see Kelly alive. The building had 28 security cameras, and there was basically no way to leave without being caught on at least one of them. The cameras showed the couple entering the building just before 3 o'clock that morning. And if Kelly had really left around 9 in the morning like Chris claimed, there's no way she wouldn't have been seen on camera. So now it was time to pull all the footage and go through it carefully.
WISN 12 News' Tama Ponton is live on Milwaukee's east side with the details just in overnight. Tama?
Well, we have just learned in the last hour that Kelly Dwyer's mother plans to come to Milwaukee today and meet with the police between 10:30 and 11 o'clock, and they do plan to speak to the media. We will keep you covered on what happened. This is one of the many posters hanging up in numerous businesses here on the east side of Milwaukee as the search for Dwyer continues. Now, this is the apartment building here at the intersection of Windsor and Prospect where Dwyer was last seen. Now, authorities have been searching for Kelly Dwyer.
This is the most awful, incredibly horrible thing anyone could ever go through. I don't know where my baby is.
More than a week had passed since Kelly was officially reported missing, and police went back to Chris's apartment again, hoping to find some kind of clue. He still didn't seem all that worried, saying their relationship had been way more casual than Kelly had made it sound to other people. According to him, they saw each other a few times a week, and it was more like a no-strings-attached thing. Meanwhile, Kelly had been calling him her boyfriend. He also claimed that Kelly had been seeing other people and never deleted her dating app profiles. He even gave police a few names of guys he thought should be checked out. One of Kelly's friends backed that up, saying Kelly was way more into Chris than he was into her. It was pretty obvious she wanted something more serious, but knowing he wasn't looking for commitment, she kept her options open and sometimes stayed active on dating apps. Chris admitted they had used drugs together that night, but insisted nothing else illegal happened. He kept saying Kelly left that morning and that was all he knew. While detectives were talking with him, one of them got a message from an officer who had been reviewing the security footage in the building. The message was short and simple: she didn't leave. Not a single camera caught Kelly walking out of the building after she went in that morning. That was seriously unsettling. And when investigators noticed drugs in the apartment, that alone was enough to bring Chris down to the station for questioning. But pretty quickly, he asked for a lawyer. Police got a search warrant and kept digging, and oh my God, they found way more than anyone expected: large amounts of drugs and illegal material and electronic devices. They also uncovered disturbing videos and photos of Kelly that showed dangerous and violent behavior from Chris just weeks before she disappeared. In the bathroom, the shower curtain had been ripped down and was gone, and the air smelled strongly of bleach. Inside Chris's car, they found Kelly's DNA on a black leather glove. At that point, police were convinced he was involved in her disappearance, so they arrested him on the charges they had, giving themselves time to keep building the case around what really happened to Kelly.
And that breaking news: new child porn charges against Kelly Dwyer's friend. He is not charged in her disappearance, but Chris Sacko is facing 17 new counts of having child pornography on his computer.
Chris Sacko was arrested on charges related to drug possession and illegal materials, and he was also officially named a key person of interest in Kelly's disappearance. He pleaded not guilty. About a month had passed since Kelly vanished, and her parents went to the media, offering a reward of $10,000 for any information that could help find her.
Mother has been in agony since her daughter vanished more than a month ago.
It honestly gets harder every day to be hopeful, the longer it goes. Yes, it's very hard to remain hopeful. It sounds like a cliche, but there are no words to say how horrible it is. I can't believe that I've survived a month without my daughter.
Maureen Dwyer stood in front of a podium in the shadows of Chris Sacko's condo. Surveillance video captured her daughter Kelly walking into the building last month, but sources tell us it doesn't show her walking out.
It is frustrating, but we continue to hold out hope that we will locate her, and we're not giving up. We're still considering this a missing persons investigation.
Police believe Sacko may have been the last person to see her alive. Kelly's mom talked about their relationship.
I do know that she talked about him. I mean, they had been seeing each other for almost a year.
So again, a $10,000 reward is now offered in the case. No conviction necessary. This family says that money will go to whoever can provide enough information that lets them know what happened to Kelly. We're live on the East Side tonight. Michelle Fiore, today's TMJ4.
Well, let's hope this helps. Thank you, Michelle.
Meanwhile, Megan, Chris's longtime girlfriend, happened to see the news about his arrest, and she immediately knew she had to go to the police. Things that once just seemed a little weird suddenly took on a whole new disturbing meaning. She told investigators that after Kelly disappeared, Chris completely changed. He became tense, restless, and acted like he was constantly hiding something. On the day Kelly went missing, he showed up to dinner more than an hour late. And when he finally arrived, he looked nervous and scattered, checking his phone nonstop, like he was waiting for a message or afraid he might miss a call. Later on, detectives learned that during that time, he had intentionally gone off the grid for long stretches, turning his phone off and even taking out the SIM card. That night, he stayed over at Megan's place, but instead of his usual calm self, he was closed off, fidgety, and acting really strange, which she noticed right away. The next morning, the same day Kelly was officially reported missing, he suddenly took off on a long drive. He couldn't clearly explain where he was going or why, which only made Megan even more suspicious. After that, out of nowhere, he started talking about moving in together and building a future, even though before that he had always been totally against making any big life changes. That sudden shift seriously raised red flags for her. When investigators showed Megan photos from Chris's apartment, she immediately recognized the rooms and confirmed that the shower curtain, towels, and bathroom mat were missing. She also pointed out that a large golf travel bag was gone. It had always sat in the exact same spot, constantly blocking the way to the bathroom. Megan remembered it clearly because she had joked about it more than once, but now it was nowhere to be seen. The investigation took another sharp turn when police brought in a cadaver dog, a specially trained dog used to detect human remains. The dog reacted strongly inside Chris's apartment. The most intense responses were on his bed, in the bathroom, near the trash chute in the hallway, close to his parking spot in the underground garage, and in the trunk of his car. For investigators, that was basically the final confirmation. Everyone's worst fears seemed to be coming true. Kelly was dead, and it appeared she had likely been forced into the golf bag and then taken out of the building in Chris's car, but where she had been taken after that was still a complete mystery.
It's been 6 long weeks since Kelly Dwyer disappeared. Finally, her dad's facing his greatest fear.
Do you not think Kelly's alive?
I don't think she's alive. I don't think she's alive.
It's getting harder every day.
They're frustrated with the investigation.
I think the Milwaukee Police Department has some wonderful people working there, and I think their hearts are in the right place. But for some particular reason, this case has not gotten the priority that it should.
Kelly's boyfriend has not been arrested in her disappearance. However, Chris Sacko has been charged with keeping a drug house and 17 counts of possessing child porn. Prosecutors asked for $250,000 in bail, calling him a probable homicide suspect.
Everything points to the fact that he did do something. In my heart of hearts, I believe he did something.
Because of the dog's reaction near the trash chute, investigators had to consider the possibility that Kelly or something connected to her may have ended up there that night. That led to a search at the city landfill that lasted for several days.
News now, Milwaukee detectives will resume their search of a Menominee Falls landfill for a 5th day today.
They are still searching for any evidence in connection with the disappearance behind Kelly Dwyer.
Chris's bail was raised with authorities worried that he might try to run.
Well, right now at 10, a judge more than tripled Chris Sacko's bail today.
However, he did manage to post bail and was released while waiting for trial. During his short time in jail, he supposedly confessed to another inmate that he had killed Kelly during a violent incident. That inmate, a man named Don Trell, claimed that Chris had tried to pull him into a plot against an ex-girlfriend, and that's when he admitted to killing Kelly. But unfortunately for prosecutors, that testimony couldn't be used in court. In the end, Chris pleaded guilty to the drug charges, but kept fighting the charges related to the illegal materials.
Portrayed in court documents as a wild guy, using drugs and bondage during sex acts, Chris Sacko was rather subdued in the courtroom. At the hearing, the defense gained something: time. They want more time for their experts to study Chris Sacko's hard drive.
Because of the nature of the alleged offenses, that analysis will require the expert to be I guess at the police department or at some facility the police department controls.
Judge Borowski agreed to give the defense a few extra days.
Up to that point, there had still been no trace of Kelly, and her case was officially reclassified as a cold case. For her family and friends, that was absolutely devastating. Just hearing the words cold case brought a whole new wave of pain and fear. Would it ever be solved? Would they ever find Kelly DWI?
New at noon today, a trial date has now been set for Chris Sacko.
Maureen Dwyer got up at dawn to make sure she was at this court hearing for Chris Sacko. During the hearing, a June trial date was set. Although the charges don't relate to Dwyer, Dwyer's family is hopeful there'll be some resolution soon.
He did something to Kelly, and we want him to tell us about it.
He's guilty of sin and slow-moving process, and he's walking free while, Kelly's body's decomposing.
A few months after the searches and the seizure of Chris's electronic devices, he was found guilty on 16 out of 17 charges related to possessing illegal materials. The court ruled that the evidence was strong and convincing, despite the defense trying hard to challenge it. During the actual trial, the topic of Kelly's disappearance wasn't officially allowed to be mentioned, so it wouldn't influence the jury's decision. But when it came time for sentencing, the prosecutor, Sarah Hill, did bring it up. She pointed out that even though the case wasn't formally part of the trial, it spoke volumes about Chris's character and how dangerous he was. In the end, the judge sentenced Chris to 19 years in prison. His mother, Joyce, continued to insist that he was completely innocent. She claimed there was nothing strange or intentionally illegal on the devices that were found. According to her, as an IT professional, her son had simply kept old equipment from previous jobs without even knowing what was stored on those hard drives and flash drives. Since Kelly's disappearance was still unsolved and police eventually shifted focus to other cases, her family decided to take matters into their own hands. They hired a private investigator, hoping to find answers where the official investigation had hit a dead end. He began searching through several large areas in and around Milwaukee, carefully examining locations that might have been connected to Chris's movements during those days. Meanwhile, Chris's former partners started coming forward with disturbing and chilling stories about their relationships with him. They said that at first everything seemed consensual, even exciting, but very quickly things spiraled out of control and turned dangerous. One woman admitted that at one point she almost died and still can't forget the fear she felt. Another talked about how often she tried to pull away or stop him, but he ignored her pleas and clear signals to stop. She explained that she stayed because after those episodes, he would suddenly become gentle, praise her, and make her feel special, like she really mattered in his life. Some of those encounters happened without her consent at all, and one time she truly believed she wasn't going to survive. Another woman, known in the case files as Miss C, told investigators that she met Chris through Craigslist, looking for something casual and no strings attached. But very quickly, he started ignoring boundaries, safety rules, and clear stop signals. After reviewing all these statements, police and prosecutors came to the conclusion that something very similar had most likely happened to Kelly, and that in that kind of situation, she had lost her life. Investigators believed he disposed of her body on October 12th, when he supposedly drove to Madison to buy cheese. They mapped out a route of about 160 miles, a massive, almost overwhelming area to search. According to his bank card records, on the way back from Madison, he stopped and bought a pair of shoes. It wasn't much, but it was an important clue maybe Kelly was somewhere in that area. But before search teams could fully begin their work, a local resident called the police. He said he had spotted something that looked like a human skull tangled in thick brush on a slope near a dead-end rural road. When officers arrived at the scene, they soon discovered an entire human skeleton almost completely intact except for a few finger bones. The right leg was twisted unnaturally inward, and the left arm was bent and thrown up over the ribs and spine, as if the body had fallen there with force or had been hurriedly dumped down the slope.
Tony Dwyer says he's not jumping to conclusions.
Tenure of this entire thing has been so painful, so long, and impacted so many people that to have a gut reaction on any part of it is at best premature, and we do our best not to speculate. It's been a year and a half. It's a very, very long time.
Now, Dwyer is waiting for a forensic odontologist to review old dental records to determine if the female skeleton with good teeth may be his firstborn.
Certainly, it'd be closure. The one goal that we've had since the beginning is to bring Kelly back, to give her a respectful burial, funeral, an opportunity for her mother and her sister. Sure.
There was no clothing or personal belongings found nearby, so identification was expected to take several days. Using dental records, the remains were officially identified as Kelly DWI, and even though police weren't the ones who directly found her, their theory about the location turned out to be right. She was lying just a little over 10 miles from the store where Chris had bought those shoes.
She was missing for a year and a half.
And now her family has to suffer through a big waiting period until forensic analysis can determine how Kelly Dwyer died.
By that point, 19 months had passed since Kelly disappeared, and after so much time, it was impossible to determine the exact cause of death. Soil analysis showed that her body had remained in the same spot the entire time.
Today, Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm and investigators from both Milwaukee and Jefferson counties met to discuss evidence and where the investigation goes from here.
There's a lot of work to be done still, and we don't have a lot of answers.
As investigators continue their work, friends and family remember Kelly.
I'm sure it's such a relief to her family to at least have some closure so they can start their healing process.
The investigation was officially reclassified as an active homicide case, and from that point on, everything shifted into a whole different gear. Over the next 2 years, detectives kept working steadily and relentlessly, gathering evidence statements from Chris's former partners, cell phone data, surveillance footage, and other materials that slowly came together into a disturbing picture of what had happened. Investigators believed the events unfolded according to a clear, coldly planned timeline. On October 11th, sometime between about 3 and 7 in the morning, after Kelly had already died, Chris wrapped her body in the shower curtain from the bathroom and carefully placed it into the large golf travel bag. He then took it down to the underground garage and loaded it into the trunk of his car. And at that exact critical moment, a massive industrial fan just happened to block the view of the security camera pointed directly at his parking spot. At 10:06 in the morning, Chris drove out of the building. Just 2 minutes later, Kelly's phone, which was never recovered, pinged for the last time on the cell tower serving the area around his apartment. Detectives pointed out that if Kelly had really left at 9 o'clock in the morning, like he later claimed, her phone physically could not have still been registering in that same area at 10:22. That inconsistency became one of the key turning points in the case. Shortly after that, Chris returned to the building. Investigators believe those few minutes were likely when he got rid of her phone, either throwing it away or hiding it for good. Later that evening, around 6:15 p.m., he left again, saying he was taking sports equipment to his mother's house. Somewhere between 4 and 7 o'clock, he removed the SIM card from his phone, and it stayed out for the next 17 hours, like someone was deliberately trying to avoid being tracked. At 8:45 that night, more than an hour later, Chris met Megan and some friends for dinner. He acted totally calm, like nothing had happened, and later stayed the night at her apartment. His car remained parked across the street the entire time, and according to investigators, Kelly's body was still inside it. At 7:30 the next morning, October 12th, Chris took a trip to Madison that totaled about 160 miles round trip. He claimed he was going to buy cheese for Megan's parents. But detectives believed the real reason was something much darker. On the way back, he disposed of Kelly's body, using a black glove to push it down into a wooded area far from the road and out of sight. The golf bag, the shower curtain, the bathroom mat, the towels, and Kelly's clothes were never found. Those items disappeared completely, taking with them any chance of direct physical proof. Around noon, once the body was no longer in the car, he put the SIM card back into his phone and drove another 13 miles to a store where he calmly bought a new pair of shoes. After that, he started getting calls and messages from different people, including Karen, Kelly's boss, who was worried about her not showing up. He even sent a few messages to Kelly's own phone, asking if she was okay, almost like he was trying to make it seem as though he had no idea she was missing. Then he went back to Megan's place, stayed there again that night, and the next day the two of them went out for brunch. That's when he started talking about moving in together and building a future like the tragedy had never even happened. Almost exactly 2 years after Kelly's body was found, breaking news suddenly came out.
Breaking news now at noon. Nearly 4 years after Kelly Dwyer went missing, her body was discovered in 2015. Charges now filed in her murder.
He was charged with first-degree reckless homicide, strangulation, and hiding a body.
As I've briefly read through the criminal complaint, the Milwaukee County DA's office has spent time gathering at least 5 other women that Sacko had previous relationships with and laying out a pattern of sexual deviance. Now, I'm continuing to dig deeper into this criminal complaint here. It is long, 16 pages.
A bit of a jigsaw puzzle, and there were a lot of pieces that were always available to us. It was just ultimately learning how each piece fit with the others. And I think there's an overwhelming amount of information in the complaint that indicates essentially that we eliminated about every other conceivable suspect, and that this individual clearly had the opportunity and by all accounts committed this act.
In terms of what actual evidence will get in front of a jury, I would say that that's going to be a pretty good fight, and I would think a number of things listed, I could be wrong, but I would think a number of these things listed are not going to find their way in front of that jury panel, which arguably makes already circumstantial case more suspect.
Chris pleaded not guilty to all of the charges, continuing to insist he had nothing to do with what happened, even in the face of all the evidence that had been collected. He showed no remorse and never shifted his position throughout the entire process. One of the detectives who worked closely on the investigation later admitted that the case was incredibly challenging but also very strong when it came to the evidence. He said it was a really unique case, built almost entirely on circumstances, details, and indirect proof, where you constantly had to read between the lines and piece everything together bit by bit. Chris's parents, both his father and his mother Joyce, stood by him all the way to the end. They were completely convinced of his innocence and openly questioned the investigators' version of events. His father even claimed that if his son had actually done what police were suggesting, someone with his level of intelligence would have immediately gotten rid of anything that could point back to him. In his mind, the very fact that evidence existed proved Chris couldn't be guilty. But later on, Chris ran into more trouble while in custody. Officers found illegal materials in his jail cell, which only raised more questions about his behavior, and once again put the spotlight on him.
The mood in the courtroom was somber. Details shared by people who take the stand are painful to hear for Kelly Dwyer's family. Today, friends of Dwyer took the stand, as well as more MPD investigators. Karen Horton was Kelly Dwyer's boss at Lululemon, who eventually found Chris Sacko's number and called him after Dwyer didn't show up for work. Karen says Sacko came to Lululemon shortly before a group was meeting to post flyers with Kelly's photo. Sacko didn't stay to help.
And said, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through." And at that point, I just, again, got a very strong body sensation and thought, I don't trust him. At least twice, he had asked if police looked at the videos, the surveillance tapes from the apartment.
MPD Detective Eric Gulbranson shared some of the surveillance video from Sacko's apartment building garage.
Opens the trunk, and then he will grab the bag that he is pushing this in. Objection.
Attorneys for Sacko argue that the cameras don't show everything. Speculation is not enough, and evidence does not directly link Sacko to Dwyer's death.
Chris never took the stand, choosing to remain silent throughout the entire trial. Still, his defense team seemed to have an explanation for almost every single charge. They argued their version of events with the same confidence the prosecution presented theirs, like two completely different realities playing out in the same courtroom. The defense admitted that Chris's phone had been turned off and that the SIM card had been removed for 17 hours, but they insisted it was just a strange coincidence, not something with any criminal meaning behind it. During those 17 hours, Chris had gone out and bought a new pair of shoes, paying with his bank card. His attorneys really leaned into that point. They argued that if he were tech-savvy enough to intentionally shut off his phone to avoid leaving digital traces, then why would he knowingly create a financial trail by using a credit card? To them, that didn't line up with the prosecution's theory. As investigators had established, Kelly was never seen leaving the building after she went inside. Every main exit was under constant surveillance. The only other possible route was through the parking garage, but that area was also covered by cameras. There was no footage of her leaving the building at all. According to prosecutors, her body had to have been taken out in the same large golf travel bag that later went missing from Chris's apartment. Chris's lawyers pointed out that he himself was never caught on video carrying that bag, The cameras only showed him driving in and out of the building in his car, not the moment when the bag was supposedly moved. On top of that, at the critical moment, a large truck blocked the view of his parking space right when he was allegedly loading the bag into the trunk. And near the elevator he would have used, there weren't even any cameras installed. Still, the cameras did clearly and undeniably capture him leaving the building at 10:06 in the morning. According to the prosecution, that was likely when he went to get rid of Kelly's phone. When he returned less than 15 minutes later, he briefly opened the trunk of his car. Inside, a white or grayish object could be seen. Prosecutors said the shape and size of that object matched the same travel bag they believed Kelly's body had been transported in. On top of that, investigators couldn't ignore the reaction of the cadaver dog, a specially trained dog that alerted in that exact area of the garage and inside Chris's car. That suggested human remains had likely been there. Even without direct video of the bag being placed into the car, prosecutors argued there was more than enough evidence that it existed. Megan had seen the bag before. Investigators believed Kelly had been forced inside it and then driven out of the building in Chris's car. Megan testified in court, along with detectives, forensic experts, and other key witnesses from both sides. After 9 intense days of testimony, both sides wrapped up their arguments. And just 2 hours after the jury began deliberating, they returned to the courtroom to deliver their verdict.
Count 3, we the jury find the defendant Chris Sacko guilty of strangulation and suffocation.
Today on Live at 4, jury found Chris Sacko guilty in the death of Kelly Dwyer.
Almost 5 long years after Kelly was last seen alive, the case finally reached its final chapter in the courtroom. Chris Sacko was found guilty on all charges, no reduced counts, no doubts, and no hesitation in the jury's verdict. During the sentencing hearing, the defense was still pushing hard, trying to argue that everything between them had been consensual and that Kelly had gone back to his apartment that morning by her own choice, without any force involved. His attorneys even asked for a sentence of 22 years in prison, presenting it as fair and reasonable. But the judge completely disagreed. He said that Chris's behavior from the very beginning of the investigation all the way through the trial told him everything he needed to know about his true character, especially considering the past crimes he had already served time for. In the judge's view, a 22-year sentence would be far too much of a risk to the public. He made it clear that Chris deserved a much harsher punishment, even longer than what the prosecution itself had requested.
He deserves to live a long, long life in jail, hopefully tortured by the choices he's made.
Along with her father and sister, Kelly Dwyer's mother asked the judge for the maximum sentence.
When your daughter goes missing for 1.5 years with no clue as to where she is, that is torture beyond belief.
The most aggravating factor is not only taking the life of that child, but also of trying to hide it.
He emphasized that even if everything had started out consensual, 2 things could be true at the same time. What may have started out as consensual eventually turned into a complete disregard for human life. You strangled your victim for your own pleasure. The judge made it absolutely clear, with no room for compromise, that Kelly's sexual preferences or the preferences of any other women could never, under any circumstances, be used to justify the way they were treated. He said that personal fantasies, private agreements, or desires do not give anyone the right to degrade another person, put them in danger, cause them pain, or most of all, take their life. He stressed that at the core of any relationship, no matter what kind it is, there must be safety, mutual respect, clear boundaries, and true consent. And in Chris's actions, none of that existed. He consistently ignored stop signals, showed total disregard for human dignity, and acted purely on his own desires and need for control, without caring about the consequences for the other person. The court also pointed out that Chris had countless chances to stop. At any moment, he could have ended what was happening, recognized how dangerous the situation had become, or at the very least called for help. But he didn't. Instead, he kept going step by step as Kelly's condition rapidly worsened until she ultimately died. After that, instead of calling emergency services, asking for help, or taking responsibility, he chose a different path. He covered up what had happened, coldly trying to erase the evidence, hide the crime, and mask the tragedy. And then he went on living his life as if nothing had happened, like a human life meant nothing to him. Prosecutors emphasized that all of this behavior, combined with the testimony from former partners and the materials found during the searches, clearly and undeniably showed just how dangerous, aggressive, and threatening Chris was to others. His actions weren't some one-time mistake. They pointed to a pattern of ignoring boundaries, safety, and the lives of other people.
After years of going unsolved, the man found responsible for the death of Kelly Dwyer will spend 31 years in prison.
In 2018, 43-year-old Chris Sacko was sentenced to 31 years in prison, followed by another 19 years of supervision after his release. The judge's decision marked the final chapter in a long and exhausting case that had kept not only Kelly's family, but the entire community on edge for years. The courtroom was heavy and silent as the judge read the sentence, and every word landed like a blow. Combined with the 19 years he had already received for drugs and other crimes, it meant Chris would most likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. Even if it wasn't officially called a life sentence, in reality, his chances of ever walking free were almost non-existent. He refused to accept the outcome and began filing appeals on his earlier convictions, trying to find any legal angle that might change his fate. But in 2019, all of those attempts were denied, and the courts upheld the rulings. Later on, he also appealed the conviction in Kelly's case, claiming there had been mistakes during the trial and that he deserved a new one. But once again, the justice system stood firm, and in 2023, the court finally rejected any further review. For Kelly's friends and family, the entire journey had been years of pain, anxiety, and constant waiting. They lived with the fear that justice might never come, that the truth could get lost in paperwork, courtrooms, and endless procedures. Even after Chris was finally sentenced, real relief never came. Losing Kelly left a hole that no verdict could ever fill, but at least they were able to lay her to rest, say goodbye, and honor her properly. Kelly's mother, Maureen, slowly became more withdrawn over time. She often felt exhausted, got sick frequently, and missed work because she couldn't bring herself to be around people, hear condolences, or answer questions. She gradually distanced herself from friends, admitting that while they truly wanted to support her, they just didn't know how to help someone through such a deep tragedy. There's no relief. There's no moving on. There's only a new reality, and it's unbearably painful. And I just want to sincerely thank all of you for staying with me through the end of this story. I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and drop a comment. Your support truly means the world to me and helps the channel keep growing. I honestly appreciate every single person who takes the time to do that. Take care of yourselves.